Masechet Gittin, Daf Bet. The word Gittin comes from a Syriac and Aramaic word, get, which actually simply means a document. It's not necessarily a divorce document. There you can call any document or contract a get. But it's usually used when it's said by itself. It is usually referring to a divorce document. It is, in fact, the targum of this word here, Sefer Keritut. Sefer is translated as get. Now, the Torah requires that in order to get divorced, one has to write a Sefer Keritut. Unlike with getting married, where there's many ways to get married, in order to get divorced, there has to be a document, has to be signed by two witnesses. The Talmud learns Vechat Tavla has to be written for the sake of this woman. The man has to ask for it. He has to either write it or have it commissioned, and it has to be written with this particular woman and marriage in mind. Now, why is it important for divorce to be with a written document, whereas for getting married, one does not need a written document? Now, a couple of reasons. One is to have proof afterwards. If and when the woman wants to get remarried, and she has to prove that she was divorced, because everybody knows, oh, you were married, so she'll have this document in order to show and prove that she was divorced. And also because we want to try to make people think twice about getting divorced. In general, there are some religions that don't allow divorce at all. They say once you get married, that's it. There's no way out. There's religions on the opposite extreme that say it's easy to get divorced. A man just says, get out 3 times, and that's it. They're divorced. And halacha is right in the middle of that. Now, on the one hand, it recognizes that although divorce is a sad thing and has terrible consequences, nevertheless, sometimes you need to have a divorce. Sometimes you want to give a chance for people that are in a bad relationship to be able to separate and start their lives over. And so you need divorce. However, sometimes people are angry, and they might, on the spur of the moment, decide they want to get divorced. We want to make sure people think twice and 3 times. And by having to go through this process of writing it or getting a sofer to write it and getting 2 witnesses, so this is a whole procedure, and by time one has to go through the procedure and other people are involved, and they'll hopefully get involved and bring shalom bayit if possible. And so that way, while divorce is possible, but we also want to put a few pauses on the way so that people can make sure that this is really the decision that they want to go ahead with. Okay, so for all those reasons, we have to write a get vekatavla sefer keritut. The Mishnah jumps right into the middle, assumes you know a lot about what a get is, and is talking about someone who is delivering a get through a messenger. If the husband and wife are not living in the same city, or maybe they just don't want to see each other, so the husband can send a messenger, take this get, and give it to my wife who lives over there. So the Mishnah is discussing a case. If someone is bringing a get as a messenger from outside the land of Israel into the land of Israel, the husband lives outside and is bringing it to the wife inside, that messenger has to say this following formula: this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence. He has to say that formula. Why does he need to say that formula? The Gemara will give a couple of reasons. One of them is that whenever you have signatures on a document, right, the signatures are there to prove that this really happened. In the case of get, not only do they prove that it happened afterwards, they're actually necessary to effectuate the transaction, to actually effectuate the divorce itself. So the witnesses are very important. If the husband or anyone else may come afterwards and say, I think those signatures are forged, well, in that case, one would have to do kiyum haget. You have to take it to court, and the courts would have to ratify the signatures. How would they do that? Either they find the original witnesses and they bring them in and say, did you sign this? Is this your signature? And they say yes. Or they find someone who knows the witnesses and recognizes their signature, or something that they can compare it to. And then they would have to ratify it. And so, as we'll see, the second opinion in the Gemara is that this is the reason why why he has to say this. When you're bringing a get from a different country, and the witnesses are from that foreign country, and you're bringing it to Eretz Yisrael. And now, if the husband or someone should say that these witnesses, these signatures are forged, then the witnesses are not going to be around, and probably people that know the witnesses are not going to be around because they are from, let's say, Bavel. And so it's going to be difficult to ratify it. Therefore, if the one witness comes and says, I saw them write it and I saw them sign it, that is kind of like a notary, right? Just like in modern times, you have a notary. And even if you need two signatures, all you need is one notary to say, yes, I saw these and recognize these two signatures. So that one notary can act as a way of ratifying the signatures on the document, and you do that from the beginning, and that way in the future, they'll say, oh, though this was ratified, the witness, the messenger that came, he ratified that it was in front of him, and the Bet Din, the local Bet Din in Eretz Yisrael, can keep that on record. And so that's at least one reason for this need, for the need of this formula. Okay, so that's a general outline. This is a general introduction that we could call it Tanakama, and now we're going to see three opinions within precisely what kind of traveler would need to say this formula. Rabban Gamliel omer af hamevi min harekem umin hacheged. Rabban Gamliel says not only if you bring a get from a foreign land to the land of Israel, even with cities within the land of Israel, rekem, we don't know exactly where it is, but it seems to be near the border of the Jordan River. Cheged may be near Be'er Sheva here, and so even if you bring it from that place, you also have to have the messenger has to say the formula. Why? Well, either because it's kind of near the border, or these are places that are sparsely populated, and therefore we will have a hard time finding people that know the witnesses there. Or we'll see for the other reason also. Rabbi Eliezer omer afilu mikefar ludim lelod. Rabbi Eliezer is the most machmir and said you need to say this formula even if you're going from Kefar Ludim, a little village nearby, to Lod. Lod is a big and major city where the airport is now. And so these cities, even though they're close by and within Israel, you should still say the formula. So either he's saying you should always say the formula, or maybe because Kfar Ludim is a place that's only sparsely populated, even though you're going to a major city, even in that case, it may be hard to find the people in a major city. Let's say it's being transferred from one major city to another major city. You go to a city and you ask around, there's someone that knows these witnesses. Whereas in a little village, it may be hard to find. So that would be the reason, at least according to the ratification of witnesses. Okay, so that's two opinions. And now Chachamim omrim, eno sarich sheyomar befanai nichtav, fanai nichtav, elam vim b'medinat hayam o v'hamoli. Chachamim, who sound just like the Tanakama, say you only have to say the formula when you're coming from a foreign country into Israel. But within Israel, if you're Lod and another village, or Cheged, right, it doesn't matter if you're going from a village to a city. You do not need to say it according to Chachamim. Okay, it looks kind of like that. This Tanakama is actually an introduction, and then three subdivisions that are arguing exactly how to define the, when to say it and when not. But the Gemara will ask and assume Tanakama is a separate opinion and say, what is the difference between Tanakama and Chachamim? That'll be on Daf Dalid. Chachamim do add, "V'amevi medina medina b'medidat hayam sarich sheyomar befanai nichtab ubefanai nechtam." If one brings a get from one country to another country in Medinat Hayam, someone's bringing something from Egypt to Syria, then also they would have to say this formula. So meaning it's not only from outside place to Eretz Yisrael, even from one outside place to another different country, it'll be hard to find the witnesses, and so this will be act as a notary. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, afilu mehegmonia lehegmonia, says not only from one country to another, even one district to another district within the same country, that also you should, it will require saying this formula. Good. Now that we mentioned outside of Israel and inside Israel, let's define the borders at least for this purpose. From the city of Rekem, which we did mention, and that Rekem is near the border of the Jordan, from that city and eastward is considered outside the land of Israel, and the city itself is like what's east. That's not part of Israel. And that would explain why, if you bring it from Rekem into Israel, then you would have to say it according to Rabban Gamliel, because he's considering that to be outside of the border. From Ashkelon and southward is also outside the land of Israel. Here is Ashkelon, and so this is the southern border. So anybody bringing something from lower down here, and that also makes sense. If Cheget is down here, that would be outside the border of the land of Israel, and therefore considered a different country. And that's why, again, according to Rabban Gamliel, when you bring it in, you'd have to say this formula. And me'ako lasafon v'ako kasafon. Ma'ako, which is the northern border, you can see it's up here, all the way up here. So Akko, north of Akko, is also considered outside the country, and the city itself is beyond the border. Like if the tennis ball lands on the line, I think that means it's in. But in these cases, the cities themselves are out. Rabbi Meir Omer, Akko keres Yisrael Gittin. Rabbi Meir says, for the purpose of Gittin, Akko is in fact like is inside the land of Israel. So if you bring it from Akko to Yerushalayim, then or to Haifa, then you would not have to say the formula. Ha maybe get be'eretz Yisrael eno sarich sheyomar befanai nichtab befanai nechtam. Someone who brings a get within the land of Israel does not need to say and this would be the opinion of Chachamim. But perhaps probably not the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And the reason, if it's because of ratification, is because you're in the land of Israel. So if someone comes and says, "Hey, these signatures are forged," you're in the country, so you can go find the witnesses or someone that knows them within the country. In a different country, that's harder to find. And then we say, "V'im yesh alav orerim yitkayem bechotamav." And what are you going to do if at some point someone comes and contests the signatures? Well, then you have the signatories. You'll find them. You'll authenticate the document based on the witnesses or somebody that recognizes the signature of the witnesses because it's in the land of Israel. From this line here, this last line, it does seem like this is the reason of the Mishnah. But now the Gemara will offer two different reasons. My ta'ama, what is the reason why a messenger would have to say this formula? Rabba amad lefi she'en biki'in lishma. He says the reason is because outside the land of Israel, the people there and the scribes there are not experts in all the laws and requirements of writing a get. They know how to write a get. They know Hebrew. They know how to write the names and all that. But they're not experts in this law that has to be written for her sake. What you cannot do for a get, you can't have pre-written Gittin and just print a bunch of them and then give it to anyone who comes and just fill in a name. No, the get has to be written specifically for that person. Or let's say you have a get written for someone named Sarah, and then she doesn't use it. Can you use it for a different person named Sarah? Abraham and Sarah, they're both two Gittin, two couples with the same name. You didn't use it for one. Can you use it for another? Answer is no. If it was written for one particular couple, they can use it, cannot be used for anybody else. So outside the land of Israel, they are not aware of this, and therefore we're afraid that the sofer will just take a get that he has pre-written and use it, and that will be no good. But in Israel, they know this law. The sages in Israel, they teach the law, everybody knows it. So therefore, if a get is written outside the land of Israel, we have the messenger come, and we can do one of two things. Either ask the messenger, you were there when they wrote it, and when they signed it? when they wrote it, did they have in mind that it's for this particular couple? And he'll say yes. That's what she says. Although not necessarily that it doesn't say you have to have a question. Further questioning, it could simply be that, well, since the messenger is standing there and he's witnessing that, so obviously they're writing it for him to go and take. So that's presumably, if they're writing it in his presence, otherwise they'd be like, oh, what are you doing here? Right? Oh, I'm here because the husband asked me to take a get for his wife to this person. Oh, okay, well, we have to write it for him to give to her. So if he's there and present, then that indicates that it was in fact written for this particular couple. So that's the reason. Okay, Rabbah. What's leading Rabbah to say that it has to do with the lack of knowledge outside the land of Israel? Well, probably because the Mishnah starts off saying, if you bring it from outside Israel to Israel, then you have to say this formula. So it makes sense that the reason would have to do something with the difference between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, or other countries, and that would relate to the expertise, the teaching of Torah, the knowledge within Israel, which is a higher level, and they know this, and outside the land of Israel, where they are not aware of this requirement. All right, that's the first opinion of Rabbah. Now, Rabbah would have to explain that the other opinions that say you have to bring it even from a small village, right, to be Eliezer, maybe that would be a similar reason. In a small village, there isn't a yeshiva there aren't Talmidei Chachamim there, so people don't have as much education, and they may not know this law, and so that's why a small village would be similar, that you'd have to say it. Okay, so that's how Rabbah would explain the Mishnah. However, his student, the Rabbah is third generation. Rabbah, student is fourth generation. Rabbah amar lefi she'en edim mesuyin lekayemo. This is the one I assumed when I was explaining the Mishnah, because the witnesses will not be around to ratify the document, and therefore the one witness will come and kind of act as a notary. Now, my benai will be a practical case where the reason of one of these sages would apply and the other one wouldn't. We'll have three examples. Let's say there are two messengers. The husband says, hey, you too, you're going to Israel. Do me a favor, and both of you take this get to my wife. Now, if there are two people bringing it, then the two people can act to ratify the document, right? If someone should come and say, these signatures are forgeries, well, now you have two people that can come and say, oh, we're from there. Therefore, they probably know the witnesses and know their signature, and they can testify. So therefore, they don't have to say right up front, it was written and signed before us. We don't need to be notarized, because they're probably going to be around, and therefore they'll be able to say it. Furthermore, I mean, you might wonder, well, maybe they don't know the witnesses. Maybe they're not staying there. Maybe they're going away, going back somewhere. But even in that case, the fact that two people are coming, and that means that the husband appointed both of them, so that adds a strong indication that this, in fact, the husband, in fact, did send this get, and therefore it's a true get, and therefore the witnesses most likely are in fact authentic. And so just the fact that it's delivered by two witnesses sent by the husband, that itself is an authentication of the document. Even if these two messengers are not around in the future. Okay, so either way, this would, according to Rava, the second opinion, these two messengers who come would not have to say the formula. Just their presence, bringing it together, that is sufficient to ratify a document, and they don't have to say the notary formula. However, according to Rava, the first opinion, if we're afraid that outside the land of Israel, they don't know the law of Lishma, well, it doesn't matter if there's one messenger or two messengers. We would need even two messengers to say it was written in front of us and signed in front of us, and therefore we can, our presence there shows that it was written particularly for this woman. And so having an extra witness, extra messenger, you would still need to say the formula. Okay, so that's one way. What if it's from one region to another region within the land of Israel. In this case, it's flipped. According to Rabbah, who says that people outside land of Israel don't know the law that has to be written for her sake, now this is written in Israel. So even though it's going from one section to another section in Israel, but it's written in Israel, okay, people in Israel know the law. So therefore, the one messenger would not have to say, B'fanai nichtab, u'fanai nichtam. We can assume, oh, it was written in Israel, they know the law, not necessary to say the formula. However, according to Rava, who says about ratification, wait a second, if I'm all the way in the north of Israel, and all the way in the south of Israel is a different province, then it would be hard to find someone to ratify the document should someone question it. And so therefore, according to Rava, you would still need to say b'fanai nichtab or b'fanai nichtam, because we're not going to be able to find the witnesses that are all the way down south when we are all the way up north. Or another case that would be a difference between them is if it's within one region that is in outside the land of Israel. Let's say in Bavel, right? In Bavel, there's to one from one city to another. Within Bavel. Now, if the reason is because out in Bavel they don't know the law of Lishma, well then, I'm in the Bet Din in Bavel, and so, the Bet Din knows that it has to be Lishma, but it was written somewhere else in Bavel, and maybe over there they don't know. So therefore, according to Rabbah, you'd have to say the formula, and it was written Lishma. Because even though it's two cities that are close by, because the city was written in is outside the land of Israel. So it all has to do with if it was written in Israel, it really doesn't matter where it's going. You don't need the formula. If it's written outside the land of Israel, according to Rabbah, it doesn't matter where it's going. You need to say the formula. However, according to Rava, who says about ratifying the document, if it's in the city, in the same region, then even if it's in Bavel, even if it's in Bavel, since both this within one region, they're close to each other, so then he doesn't need to say the formula, because if someone will come and question their signatures on the document, no problem. We'll just go and we'll find the witnesses, we'll find someone who will know them, and we will ratify it. There's no need to notarize it. Good. So now we understand the two reasons and cases that would be different, and now we're going to begin some lines of questioning against each one. According to the first reason, that's because they don't know the requirement that has to be written for her sake, and the witness is saying, it was written in front of me, and therefore it was written for her sake. How do you believe one witness? You should require two messengers to come and testify, just like all testimony throughout the Torah, throughout the whole Torah. If you need, this guy stole money from me, this guy committed a crime, he killed someone. For every law, you need two witnesses to decide to know that that is true. And therefore, we should require two witnesses to say it was written in front of us, and therefore it was written for her sake. And the answer is, it's true you need two witnesses for civil and criminal law and many other laws, but for isur veheter, you only need one witness. We do this all the time, right? If one person, like your wife, says this food is kosher, then you're allowed to eat it. You don't have to find two witnesses that testify that they saw this food, where it came from, and it's kosher. One witness is believed regarding Isur Veheter, and this is an example of Isur Veheter. Is she allowed to get remarried or not? One witness is sufficient. But what we challenge this answer is, hold on, we only apply this rule that we believe one witness when it comes to Isurin. That's when there's no chazakah. For example, there's someone ate a piece of fat, and we're not sure, was that fat, was it haleb, which is prohibited, or was it shuman, which is permitted? And then, so there's no presumption from beforehand, and then one witness comes and says, oh, that was permitted. That's okay, because there was no prior presumption of that it was prohibited. So then one witness is believed to clarify its status. But in our case, we start off with a presumption that she is Eshet Ish, because everybody knows this woman was married, right? That's agreed to by everyone. And the question is she now no longer Eshet Ish? Is this get good or not? This is a serious matter. Not only is there a chazakah beforehand that she was Eshet Ish, furthermore, it's a matter of erva, which if she would go, if she was still married, and she'd go and have a child with someone else, then that would be a serious prohibition. Child would be a mamzer. And so when it comes to davar shebe'arva, when we know she already is married, she has a status of arva, so then you can't undo that serious status quo with one witness. There you need two witnesses. And so therefore, back to the question, why, according to Rabbah, you should require two witnesses to say it was written properly, lishma. And the answer is, Rov Biki'in Hen. Actually, most people know that it has to be written lishma. So we're not starting off with a status quo of zero. Since the majority of people do know this, we're only worried about a few people that may not know this. And even according to the Bimeir, who in other general contexts, he says we have to worry about a minority of people that they don't know. Even for the Bimeir, it's okay. Stam safre de dayane migmar gemire v'Rabbanan hu de'asruch. Most of who's writing the Gittin, it's not just regular people, it's a scribe, right? A scribe of the dayanim. The dayanim, will tell everyone, go to that scribe. He knows what he's doing. So presumably a scribe, even if he's not the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world, he knows something. He's doing this all day. So he would be learned enough to know the law. Therefore, the truth is that we really don't need it to be notarized. The scribe himself, right, will not forget notary. That was for ratification. Really, we don't need the witness to say it was written in front of us, because we can assume that most people, and certainly almost every scribe, will know that it has to be written lishma, and it'll be written lishma. So on the deoraita level, we don't need this formula to be said. It's not required at all. However, the rabbis came and they wanted to add a stringency. They said, listen, since out there in Midyat Hayam, maybe you'll be in some place, some far out village, and the scribe there doesn't know this. So, you know what? Let's add a little bit of a stringency and say that if there's a messenger, brings it from a messenger from outside the land of Israel, he should say this formula. But since it's only midrabanan, only out of extreme caution, hacha mishum iguna akilu baharabanan. In this case, because we don't want to create an aguna. So therefore, the rabbis were lenient. In other words, if you would require two witnesses, and the two witnesses have to come and say, yes, it was written in front of us, and therefore it's lishma. So then, if you don't have the two witnesses coming and you only have one, then the get is going to be no good. And now she is going to be without a get. She won't be able to get remarried. So the rabbis, while yes, they want to add a stringency to make sure that the get qualifies for all the requirements. But the truth is, on Doraita level, you don't need the formula at all. And therefore, since the stringency is only midrabanan, so the rabbanan are not going to go to such an extent and require two witnesses, which you would usually need in order to establish that something is not arayot. But here, since on the Doraita level, it's already established and we don't need it, and it's only a chumrah midrabanan, so the rabbis say, we'll just add it as a little bit of a chumrah, and all you need is the shaliach, one shaliach. He says the formula. That's enough for us. That satisfies the remote possibility that the scribe didn't know this law. And you see, the rabbis are sensitive. On the one hand, they want to make sure that the get fulfills all the requirements, but as long as it's most likely that it fulfills all the requirements, they don't want to add too many astringencies so that a woman who is receiving a get will be able to receive it, and it can be trusted that it is kosher, so that she can go ahead and get remarried. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.